Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Ryan and Log Fantasy Show. As always, I am Ryan.
And I'm Logan.
No, you are not.
Okay, I am Log.
Yes, you are Log. So, I hope everybody won their fantasy weeks. I hope everybody did good, because I did really well. Really, really well. But I still lost. Because I put up 144 points, and I thought, this is good. And then the guy I'm playing puts up 148. And he's the only guy to outscore me this week, and he just destroys me. Because he has Dalvin freaking Cook go for all of Minnesota's touchdowns. And I'm still rattled about this. Because I'm 4-4. Every loss I've had has someone has dropped 160, 150, 140, and I can't win. And then you have a guy like Log put up 82 points or something like that in a victory.
Great week.
So I'm just very, very upset about this.
Here's the thing with fantasy though. Don't be bitter. Be better.
Like, I get the be better, but I don't want to be better. I want to be the best. Because everybody in my league, or in our league, is, like, everyone last week for fantasy, week 8 fantasy football was a crapshoot. Like, brutal. The weather was bad in almost every game, so, like, guys were, like, there was almost half of our league, and now, like, 75% was dropping maybe, like, 75 points, 80 points. Like, maybe they cracked 100, but it wasn't, like, great. And there's only, like, 4 guys to crack 100. And I still lose. I have the 3rd most points in the league. And I'm 4-4 in 5th place. And my team is good. I have complete faith that I will still win. But losses like this just hurt.
And you know you're moving to 4-5 after this week, so you're going to have to keep digging.
Just give everybody the heads up. Week 9 matchup is Log versus me. So this is going to be a very heated match, and I'm genuinely nervous because every time I've played Logan in fantasy football, it has not ended well.
If it matters, I pull it out.
That's what he does. But enough with my worries. So the first thing we're going to cover today is we're going to cover our Week 8 recap and talk about some guys that we thought were did really well, and maybe that's going to continue going forward. Maybe some signs that a game, if guys had good games or bad games, if that's a sign of things to come, or if that's just one of the rare things that happens. So, Log, who is a guy this week that you think their performance is going to shape the outlook of the rest of the fantasy season?
I mean, the guy I'm most interested to see moving forwards is J.K. Dobbins. Like, he finally got a shot of real work in that Baltimore offense, and he was great. Like, he looked awesome. He put up greatest stat line. The Steelers' defense is elite that they played, and he still looked fantastic. So it'll be interesting to see whether he keeps that up or if Ingram comes back, takes his role back, and they move forward that way. But I have a hard time seeing them move away from Dobbins after how well he played this week.
I totally understand that because I've been interested to see what Dobbins looks like after the Ravens use, what was it, a first-round pick on Dobbins?
I think it was a 2nd or a 3rd.
Yeah, it was a high pick for Dobbins for a running back for that Baltimore offense. And having even Gus Edwards doing a lot of work this week was very promising. But I think you're right, because when Ingram comes back, it's a crowded backfield. And if Dobbins impressed Harbaugh enough to where he's going to be able to play a lot, maybe Dobbins is the guy going forward. And maybe he's going to be one of those guys that you can put him in your flex, or he's going to perform really well. But again, I think I would need at least one more week before I decided if Dobbins is the guy, because I still think they really like Gus Edwards a little bit more, but I'm not 100% sure, right?
Yeah, if it can move from a 3-man timeshare to a 2-man timeshare, I think Dobbins is gonna be a great play because he's the only pass catcher out of that group. So there's a lot of upside there. The Ravens offense, the running backs are going to be efficient. They're going to be productive with a running quarterback. So if you can get Dobbins on the cheap, I would be trying to buy on the off chance that if he hits, he's going to be a locked-in RB2, maybe even low-end RB1 down the stretch. Like I like Dobbins a lot.
Yeah, that could be a really good acquisition for later in the season for the fantasy playoffs. You should be able to buy him low right now because like he hasn't had too many good games this season. He's pretty much been average for the whole season. So if you can buy him low, I would definitely recommend looking into it and seeing what you can possibly trade for him. Now, that was your guy of the week, right? That's something to look forward to. Is there anybody that you thought with maybe a bad performance that it might be time to jump ship with trade deadlines approaching, or do you think this is just how this player might be performing for the rest of the season?
I think Josh Kelly with the Chargers had some major red flags this week. Like, he was kind of operating as de facto number one there. Like, Justin Jackson was kind of splitting work, getting him the receiving work, but Josh Kelly was the go-to guy on the ground. And then this week he moved to be the number 3 behind both Justin Jackson and Troymaine Pope. So that, to me, Kelly's not looked good since he's gotten an expanded role. He's had some fumbling issues. I think this could be a pretty bad sign for him moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Now, a guy for me, this is a big name guy, that alarms me a lot is Zeke Elliott. Because the last time Zeke Elliott was in double-digit fantasy points was Week 5 against the Giants. And especially Cowboys fans know this, but even if you're a fantasy owner of Dak Prescott, you know Week 5 was when he broke his leg. And ever since Dak Prescott has left the Cowboys and been healing up, the highest point total for Zeke, at least in half-point PPR for us, is 8 points. So with Zeke Elliott, now with a quarterback roulette, you don't know who's starting. If it's not going to be Dalton this week. It's not going to be... what's the kid?
It's not going to be Ben DiNucci.
It's not going to be Ben DiNucci. They're going to go with... I can't remember who the name...
It's either going to be Garrett Gilbert or Cooper Rush.
It's going to be one of those two guys. And to be honest, if you're starting one of those two guys starting at the Dallas quarterback position, like, it almost makes anybody in that offense non-startable. And even if Dalton is healthy and he's the guy, Zeke is a guy I would look at to shop around just for name value to see if maybe other guys want to trade for him. But other than that, Zeke Elliott is a big, big worry for me.
Yeah, I mean, their O-line has been awful this year. Like, it's injured, it's beat up. They basically have, I think, 1 or 2 starters left on the unit. They've got a brutal schedule moving forward. Like, I'm looking at their matchups. There's maybe 2 decent matchups the rest of the season. The rest of them are all bad. You're looking at Pittsburgh, Washington, Baltimore, San Fran, and Philly, which all have...
That's a nightmare
They have
schedule.
loaded D-lines. And then your 2 good games are at Minnesota and at Cincinnati, which, like, maybe they're good, maybe they're not. They're both pretty middle of the road.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the bad quarterback play, I don't know how you can really trust him to be a stud. Like, he's going to be startable. He's going to get volume, but he doesn't have much of a ceiling anymore.
Yeah, if you have Zeke, you have to start him because you're not going to bench Zeke. But like I said, I think if you can, I think you should shop him around and maybe you find a really good trade for somebody a little bit more reliable. If this is a keeper league, obviously you don't move Zeke. You keep him where he is because this could just be his 1 year where he's not going to do anything for you. But moving forward, he should be very reliable. But like I said, I think Zeke is going to cause problems for the rest of the year for your fantasy team.
Okay, let me throw a few names at you and see who you'd rather have.
Okay.
James Conner.
James Conner.
Okay, how about Ronald Jones?
I think Ronald Jones.
Okay, I would go Zeke over Ronald Jones, but
I think I'd only go Ronald Jones because that Tampa Bay offense can get up in games, and Ronald Jones is now showing him to be a pass catcher, even though he is with the split backfield with Leonard Fournette. I just trust that offense more than I do Dallas's right now.
Yeah, I get that. There's a lot of upside with Jones if he can hold the job, but that's just it's a situation I don't want to touch personally, but that's a personal risk mitigation over the upside, because the upside is there.
Absolutely.
Okay, now, Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Now, this is very personal for Logan because he owns Clyde and he's a big Kansas City guy, but I think this season I would go Clyde.
That one for me is so tough because there's a lot of bad signs for Clyde since Lev Bell has come, but we also, like, Kansas City hasn't started their starters basically the whole fourth quarter in both those games. Like, they haven't been... Our offense has basically done nothing in those games because it hasn't had to do anything. So they're bad signs, but also I don't think it's necessarily indicative of what it's going to be going forward. So
yeah,
I would probably take Clyde for the upside, but there is significant risk there.
Okay. Now with this being the official halfway point of the season, I want to throw something at you, Logan. I want to think, let's start with your team. Who is your team's midseason MVP so far?
Oof. It'd have to be Tyler Lockett. He's been unbelievable. I traded for him after week 1. I really wanted him in the draft, just missed him. And he's been everything you can hope for from Tyler Lockett. Like, he's going to have some down weeks, but when he hits, it's an automatic win. Like, it's hard to lose when he hits on a big game.
Mm-hmm. I think for myself, obviously when healthy, Devontae Adams is my MVP.
He's been unbelievable.
But I would almost throw out there, I think my MVP, as much as I like Devontae Adams has missed some games. I think my MVP this season would almost be James Robinson. Because with James Robinson, I think my MVP and obviously my best acquisition. I picked him up right before the season started on the waiver wire, and ever since week 1, he has put up really good RB1 numbers. He's put up 20 plus points twice. He's been in the double digits. Like, he is the bell cow back now in Jacksonville. It's just one of those picks where I have a loaded roster at the wide receiver position. I had guys like Keenan Allen and Robinson and Adams who are just starting to now really be really consistent for me. But I think without Robinson, that it really takes my team down a level. So I think that's probably the guy I'm really happy with this season.
Yeah, especially finding a guy like that on the waivers. Not even on the waivers. Like, that was a free agent pickup, was it not?
That was a week before week 1 started.
Yeah, so you got him for nothing. Didn't burn priority, cost.
Nothing. I think I dropped Armstead of the same team who hasn't played.
Yeah.
I don't think he's been on the practice field due to COVID for the whole year, really.
He's had complications. He's not playing this season.
Wishing his health, obviously. But I dropped him and got James Robinson in the same backfield, took a shot at him, and it's worked out perfectly for me.
Yeah, he's been great. Like, he's been so impressive. I'm curious to see if he can keep it up, but he's been, like, everything you could have ever hoped for with that pickup.
Now, that's my best pickup. Is there anybody on your team that is your best pickup?
This one takes a little bit of projecting, but I think it's Justin Jackson. The Chargers running back is held high value for a long time, and he looks good to take over that role in full. Since he's been kind of the go-to guy, he's got 12 points, 8 points, 15.7 points. No touchdowns in that stretch. That's all yardage and catches. So if he starts hitting on a few touchdowns, Josh Kelly seems like he's getting worked out. I really love that pickup. Like, I think he's gonna be great down the stretch. His upcoming schedule, he's got Vegas, Miami, the Jets, Buffalo.
That's a really favorable schedule, especially for a running back.
Yeah, all those are great running back matchups. I think he's gonna have a lot of value coming down the stretch.
That's the thing with that Chargers backfield. It's just one of those things for years, especially with Gordon and Eckler for a lot of years. It's just been, you can own both of those guys, and it's the same thing. You can have Jackson, and it looks like Pope is probably the number 2. You could probably have both of those guys and be really happy with. And who knows, like, either one could flip-flop and be the number 1 any given week, really.
Yeah, there's, especially since they throw to the running back, there's a lot of, like, screen passes and schemed running back passes. There's serious value to be had there.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's something that's in our league that is very prominent, and it is the QB wide receiver stack. I think we have 2 teams for sure that have a wide receiver stack. We have a team with the Pat Mahomes, Tyreek Hill stack, and we have one of the Russell Wilson, and DK Metcalf stack.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you, for the rest of the season, if someone has a stack like that, what stack would you take for the rest of the season?
That is really tough. That one hurts me a little bit. I think I would have to go Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, just because the track record there is longer. They've been elite fantasy assets 3 straight years. Russell Wilson, he's always been able to have his games. He's very rarely been consistent over the course of the season. So even though, like, their defense is so bad, I think he's going to have to be as good as he's been. I would take the security of Pat Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, because I'm a Chiefs fan, so I'm a bit biased, but he's too good to have bad weeks. It just doesn't happen.
You know what? I totally get where you're coming from. Obviously, as a Chiefs fan, that's a really hard question to kind of go against Pat and Tyreek because they're your guys. But I would almost think I would want to go with the DK Russell Wilson stack only because Kansas City has a competent defense. And they're going to be able to keep you in, like, make sure your games are going to be close. So once they get out of it, they're not really going to... I'm pretty sure even Tyreek Hill, for this season, he hasn't really been overly targeted in a lot of the wins that he's had this year, or even the games he's had this year. I'm just taking a quick peek at it. He's had 2 games this season of over double-digit targets. That is not something that you're really looking at and being, well, it's Tyreek Hill. So all those targets are very high-quality targets, especially from Pat Mahomes. When you look at a guy like DK Metcalf, he only has 2 games as well over double-digit targets, but with the Seattle defense being really, really bad, it means they have to throw it all the time. Like, even the San Francisco game, the game was out of hand, but then San Francisco started getting back in the game, and they had to throw it again. So it's just one of those things where if you have either or, I'm not saying one is 100% better than the other, but I think I would rather have a stack of Wilson and DK.
Yeah, that one to me, it's too close. Like, you're fine either way. I don't know if there's really an answer. Like, you're looking at, what's the spread on the quarterbacks? Like, you have a 2-point spread so far this season on the running back, or on the wide receiver, sorry, and a 4-point spread on the quarterback so far this season in our league. So, like, they're basically the same. Now, that might actually be flawed. Saying that, I do think Seattle's had their bye week. Kansas City hasn't.
Yeah,
so
Seattle's already had their bye week. They had it
so
week 6.
Seattle guys, they're a game ahead. They've been unbelievable. So I guess, having looked at that, you probably got to say the Seattle guys. But I can't pick against my guys. I just can't do it.
I totally understand that. And speaking of DK, is DK now officially, like, superstar status when it comes to wide receiver? Set it, forget it. Don't worry about it, wide receiver. Like, for, I think, foreseeable future. Like, is he the guy that you could look at and be like, you know what, if I have this guy, he is the best one of the best wide receivers in the league, no problem.
Yeah, I have no problem locking him in. Start him, I mean, definitely the rest of this season, but I think going into next season, he'd be a top 3, top 5 wide receiver in the draft. Like, he's just been too good. He's physically dominant. He's got one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Like, it's the perfect recipe for an elite wide receiver.
Oh, like, no doubt, especially with how physical he is. He's a monster. He is very Megatron-like.
He's the first guy in a while who's actually reminded me of Julio Jones.
Yeah.
Like, you see, he's huge. He runs great routes. He catches everything. Like, you don't see guys like that very often.
No, it's very rare, and it's definitely a spectacle to watch because, holy crap, DK Metcalf is pretty fun to watch. Now, moving on to another segment is I want to kind of recap some more of these games on Sunday. Now, is there any games that you looked at and you were really disappointed with? I know there was a whole bunch of weather involved in a lot of these games, but there's any games that happened this week where you thought you were really going to get something out of it fantasy-wise and it never happened?
I mean, we talked about it on last week's pod. It was that Thursday night game, Falcons-Panthers. I liked those players, especially on the Panthers side. I loved the players, and it just... Between the rain and Curtis Samuel catching 2 touchdowns, or I think he caught one and rushed for one.
He rushed for one and caught one.
But, like, between those two, I think they were both 10-plus yard touchdowns. Yep. That just killed the upside of both DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. So that was disappointing to me.
And also, for the Falcons side, it was... Gurley didn't really have a really big game. He had an okay game. It wasn't anything to shy at. But then having Calvin Ridley, one of the best wide receivers in the fantasy this year, go down in the second quarter, I believe, and he was gone for the rest of the game. It was just a lot of those big name guys that you thought were really going to go off that week. They didn't do anything. Even Mike Davis, who's been really good in McCaffrey's absence, he didn't do a whole lot in that game.
Yeah, it felt like a game where you could start everyone, and really, like, Julio Jones is the only guy that really did anything spectacular, like Curtis Samuel, but I don't think anyone was starting him. But in terms of, like, those guys that we thought you could light up, it was Julio. That was it.
Another game for me that I'm just like I thought of that week is the Cleveland Browns versus the Vegas Raiders. That game ended 16-6. I originally said in the last pod that Derek Carr was somebody you could probably start because he's had at least 2 touchdown passes in almost every game this season. He only had 1. The Raiders won the game, but if you didn't have Josh Jacobs, there was nobody really to start that game. Because even if you look at Kareem Hunt, who's had a really good season so far, he only had 66 yards on the ground and 7 receiving yards with 2 catches. So that's another game when you're kind of looking at, like, even Baker Mayfield didn't have a good game at all. So, like, there's a whole bunch there that did not work out.
Yeah, I think that's a game that's hard to draw conclusions from because, I mean, I didn't watch the game, but everything I've heard was, like, the weather was just ridiculous. Like, winds were gusting all over the place. I think at one point they were saying there was hail.
Yeah.
So, like...
It was just disgusting.
Yeah, like, the weather was so bad that just... There was nothing that could be done through the air, and it just screwed up everything.
Yeah, that was just one of the games. Like, it felt like every game this week had a weather issue.
Yeah, there was too much of it. It was a little bit tough to watch at times.
Mm-hmm. Now, we're going to be looking forward to... We're going to talk a little about the Thursday night game and kind of what we expect for certain players. And kind of also I want to go into some injuries and kind of what we can expect from those injuries. We're going to start with the Thursday nighter. So, unfortunately, it looks like A.J. Dillon and Jamal Williams both have COVID. Looks like they're both not going to play.
Yep, A.J. Dillon with the positive test and Jamal Williams with the close contact. Yes. They're both confirmed out.
Okay, sorry. I didn't know Jamal Williams. I thought was also COVID positive, so he's not.
No.
But either way, both aren't going to play. Aaron Jones is questionable to play on Thursday night. Now, is there anybody that you're willing to pick up in that Green Bay backfield that you would feel pretty confident because somebody's going to have to run the football?
I don't think there's anyone you could be confident in. Like, it's a bad matchup. Like, the 49ers have a really good run defense despite all the injuries they've had.
But to play devil's advocate with you, DJ Dallas had 20 fantasy points against that same San Fran defense.
Oh, yeah. He was good, but that was a lot of touchdowns. Like, he wasn't efficient. So you got to be betting on touchdowns that way, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
So, I mean, if I'm taking a bet on one of the Packers guys, it's probably Irvin. I believe it's Tyler Irvin. Don't quote me on that. But...
Oh, I will quote you.
But he's the pass catcher of the group. So, Dexter Williams, I believe, has been on the practice squad. So, he hasn't even been active roster. Mm-hmm. Irvin's been with the team. I think he's likely to get more work and get the passing work, which I would be more interested in than just hoping for a goal line.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's going to be Devontae Adams.
That's
Adams gets the goal line.
That brings me to my thing, because I am psyched, because I have Devontae Adams, and with nobody really healthy on that, this is all depending on if Aaron Jones doesn't play. If Aaron Jones plays, it's basically a regular Packers game. You can start Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams, be really happy about it. But if Aaron Jones doesn't play, Devontae Adams is my wide receiver 1. For this week.
By far. He might be my number 1 player. He's
caught 2 touchdown passes in all but 2 games that he's played this year.
And with no running backs, they're gonna lean on the passing game, and he's the one who gets the volume in the passing game.
And with all the injuries in that, especially that San Francisco offense, that offense isn't going to be able to stay on the field, giving Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers a lot of time to just do some work and really do some damage.
Yeah, especially with the reports that just recently came out. We're recording this on a Wednesday evening.
Yep. That
Brandon Ayuk is also going on the COVID list. I'm not sure if it's because of close contact or what, but he's also not going to be available. So
yeah, and
they got Kendrick Bourne is also, like, they got no pass catchers left. They just cut Dante Pettis.
Yep, they just cut Pettis. They lost Kittle for, it looks like, 8 weeks. They lost Garoppolo, which looks like it could be season ending almost at this point.
Yeah, I expect both him and Kittle to be done this season at this point. Like, I don't see a...
And with that, like, especially for the San Francisco side of the ball, you would probably, we would recommend, like, if you have Kendrick Bourne, would you feel okay starting him, or would he just be like...
He's on the COVID list as well.
Is he on the COVID list?
Yep.
Okay, well, that's my bet. So, like, with that said, who is a healthy wide receiver on this San Francisco team? Like, is there any? Like,
Trent Taylor?
Yeah.
That's the only one I can think of off the top of my head.
And are they going to be... They're going to be starting Nick Mullins probably at QB, right?
Yep, which I don't know if that's necessarily a downgrade in terms of fantasy for the weapons that are there. Garoppolo, he's been much better in terms of actual NFL success, but in terms of, like, production-wise, Mullins has been able to stick right with them when he's played, so that doesn't concern me as much as the lack of weapons there.
Absolutely. And so what now I just looked at it, Tevin Coleman, he's also ruled out.
Yep.
And is Jerick McKinnon is healthy, right?
Yes.
So the question is, do you feel more comfortable in Jerick McKinnon or JaMycal Hasty?
I prefer JaMycal Hasty. They've basically shown they don't want to have McKinnon run the ball. They use him as a passing guy, but they don't want him running it. And that's how you beat the Packers. You run the ball on them. They've got a terrible run defense.
Just look at Dalvin Cook and how well he ran the freaking football.
Exactly. And I mean, the 49ers proved they could do it. Like last year in the playoffs, they dismantled that Packers run defense, and it's worse this year. Mm-hmm. So I think like Shanahan's going to have a plan to run the ball, and he's going to want to run the ball because they don't have any pass catchers. So I think you can start both backs. McKinnon to me is just, I think you're less likely to get a touchdown out of him, which is what I'd be searching for in that backfield.
Yeah, this game on Thursday night, it feels like almost every other Thursday night where it's, especially like right now, like both teams are so injury ridden. They have like nobody healthy other than like Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers are the only real star power guys that are healthy. So like my recommendation would almost be, I think you have to start JaMycal Hasty because he looked really well in his other start. I think you have to start him. Other than that, I wouldn't really touch any other anything else in San Francisco. And then
I am looking to start Jordan Reid this week. If he's healthy, it's not a guarantee.
Sorry, that's another guy.
He's going to be one of the only guys left. If not, Ross Dwelly as a tight end flyer, I think you could do worse. But someone's going to have to catch him, and they're going to have to get the ball out quick.
Cool story about Ross Dwelly is last season when I owned George Kittle, he was injured for a week against the Arizona Cardinals, and I thought, screw it, I'm going to pick up Ross Dwelly off the free agent wire. And I needed Ross Dwelly to score, 12 fantasy points. Ross Dwelly's like, no problem, Ryan, I got you. I'm going to score you 16 fantasy points. So, like, I'm not saying Ross Dwelly's guaranteeing you 16 fantasy points, but I'm saying if Jordan Reid can't go, I think Ross Dwelly is somebody that you could legitimately start.
He's capable of catching the ball. He's not like George Kittle or anything.
No.
Like, he's a fine tight end. Like, that's about as much as you can say about him. But if he gets the targets, he's got pretty solid hands from what I've seen. So he's going to come down with them, and you're probably going to be fine, especially if it's any sort of PPR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that game is pretty much, if you have Aaron Rodgers, you have Davante Adams, you're loving life. Those two guys I think they're gonna go off. I think they're not gonna have a problem with that. Other than that, I wouldn't recommend anybody else really to start comfortably, unless if you have problems at running back, JaMycal Hasty, and if you really feel like taking a tight end flyer, Jordan Reid or Ross Dwelly. I think that would be two guys to look at.
I think also on the Green Bay side, you have Robert Tanyan, who he's been good. And again, they're going to need some short yardage guys if they don't have running backs. That's how you're going to run the ball. You're going to do the screen passes. You're going to do the short yardage throws. Mm-hmm. You're going to run through the air. So Tanyan, he could be in for some more work this week.
Yeah, and it looks like, Aaron Rodgers has always really liked his tight ends. So Tanyan has been really pretty consistent ever since that. I think it was the Falcon game that he really took off in.
I think it was when Davante Adams originally went out injured. Tanyan kind of got forced into some targets, and since then he's been impressive.
Yeah, he's been really impressive. Now, Logan, is there anything else you think we should cover before this Thursday night game? Do you think there's anything else that we should talk about?
I think that's about it.
Yeah. So we are going to end off here for episode 2 of our recap and look forward to the Thursday night game. We will be uploading this video hopefully by tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon. I will try to get it up as soon as I can. And we will try to film another video on Friday looking at more of our waiver wire pickups and our look forward to week 9 of the fantasy football season. As always, I'm Ryan.
And I'm Logan.
And thank you for listening to the Ryan and Lo podcast. Please like and subscribe on the video. It would be very well appreciated. And I hope everybody enjoys the Thursday night game. If you have any guys, I hope you do really well because wins are important.
And make sure you take them out of your flex if you're starting on Thursday night. Get them in the running back and wide receiver slots. Just a little bit of extra protection there.
Don't leave them in flex. You want your flex available for the weekend. So, again, good luck. Please like and subscribe, and stay classy.